Order just got corrected and I don't know what you're in.
Being 5:32, we'll call our meeting to order. And first item, I'd like to invite anyone online with us to state their name so that we can record it for the records. Please, go ahead.
Boss with Myron Construction.
Jennifer Higgins, Village of Weston.
Emily Wheaton, Village of Weston.
Gary Gurnt.
Was that Emily? Gary Gurnt.
Speak up, please.
Gary Gurnt.
Hi, Gary.
Ada Zhang Bang with Environments, and Mindy Happy with Design Theory 19.
Roman McGuire, Village of Weston.
Anyone
John
else
Fuller.
online?
John Fuller, Shear Steel Structures.
Valerie Parker, Village of Weston.
Matt Jones, Shear Construction.
Any other committee members present online? All right, thank you. We'll now move on to item 3.
Mr. Chairman, we haven't done roll call yet.
Oh, roll call, sorry. Go ahead, Don, if you call the roll, please.
Sure. Bender. Bushnell.
Here.
Oops. That's kind of delayed. Okay. Barb Ermeling.
Here.
Brian Ermeling.
Here.
Dwayne Gow.
Here.
Gary Gurnt.
Here via Zoom.
Joe Jordan.
Here.
Mort McBain.
Here.
Steve Minell.
Here.
Aaron Nelson. So no. Lauren White.
Here.
And Hushang Zagami.
Here.
Thank you. So we have a quorum present. Now we'll go to item 3. To approve the minutes of our last meeting from December 16th last year.
Move to approve.
Hushang moves.
Second.
Barb seconds. Questions on the minutes? I'm assuming most of you have had a chance to look them over. And any questions on the minutes? They were mostly concerned with frequently asked questions if you're not remembering what we talked about last time. So with that, all in favor of approving the minutes of the last meeting signify by saying yes.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, carried. And I'll just very briefly recap purpose of our meeting today. Since it's been about 3 months since we met. But in our original charge from the village board, one of our responsibilities was to review the bids and the alternates and make recommendations regarding those to the board after the bids were received. Well, the bids have been received, they've been tabulated by staff, and the overall low bidder, taking everything into account with all the alternates and so forth, was Myron Construction. So our charge now is to review the scope of the project, primarily the alternates included or removed, and make recommendations on that package then to the village board. So that's what we're going to do tonight, is just talk about the alternates. We're going to have some explanations from our architect, and then we will decide on what we want to recommend moving forward to the village board for their award and notice to proceed. And that will take place presumably at the board's next meeting as a board. So with that, I'm not sure how we want to do this. Perhaps we can ask our architect if he would like to review with us the spreadsheet for the bids and the alternates. And we can go through those one at a time perhaps and decide what we want to recommend.
I should make a couple comments before we start.
Go ahead, Chushang, speak up, please.
In here, you got $1 million for the property, which we purchased at the corner of the Camp Phillips and Ross Avenue. But also, it did not consider this property because this property is going to be sold. And if I estimate this property should be around the same range, maybe $1 million more or less. I think that number shouldn't be there as a part of the project.
That's an interesting question, Chushang. Maybe it wasn't a question, maybe it was a statement.
It's a comment. I said I'd like to make a couple comments
Okay,
there.
okay.
And the other comment I'd like to make is maybe architect already considered that, but I would like to consider like some of these items as an alternative he has in here, maybe village can bid those projects separately instead of being part of the Myron project. Because like a salt shed, I see item 6 is the alternative 5. We got salt structure, then also 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19 also dealing with that salt storage. So that shouldn't be part of the.
Yeah, I'll touch on that. I'll explain why it's that way when I go through it.
Okay,
Right,
okay,
thank you.
okay. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, I might comment also to your comment about the sale of this property. Since we don't know how much we can sell this property for, it probably would not be appropriate to take it off of the total cost. We can refer to it, I think, but I think it should be more of a informal comment that reassures, the residents rather than a formal statement of how much we're reducing the bid. Because we really don't know how much we can sell this for, and it may take a while to sell it too.
Well, I just sold the property here maybe about 6 months ago, maybe a little bit less, more than that.
Your business property?
Correct.
Mhm.
It was just a land. I sold it to a vet over there, and that went about between $2.50 and $3 per square foot.
Mhm.
And that is the going price in this area, about $3 or $2.50 per square foot.
Okay.
So I would say this property almost that number. I didn't get that. And here is about. Yeah. So. I'm not sure I understand. I know you won't. But anyhow, I would say this is about 8 acres. And if you multiply that number, I agree with what you're saying. I understand what you said. But at the same time, it inflates this number in here to to 16 million something, which is not accurate really
Mhm.
based on my column, so.
Yeah, I appreciate your thoughts. I think we definitely will want to, at some point, calculate, perhaps, let's say, the true cost of the project to the residents. Because that's really what they're interested in. And one of the considerations would be, of course, our estimate of what the project cost would be reduced by on the sale of this property. And there are some other things that may reduce the tax burden, if you like. And we'll talk about those maybe as we go along somewhere in the process, because there are some other things pending that would likely reduce the overall impact or cost for this project. So let's go back then and,
Mark, could I just?
Go ahead, Steve.
Did that $1 million also include the demolition of the existing building, or is that absorbed by the village?
That's a good point.
That was an additional number.
That's additional? What was that cost for?
75,000, I think.
75,000? Yeah, it's not in here, I see, anyway.
It is not.
And that should be added in somewhere, I suppose, for the total cost, so, okay. Any other comments on this before we move into the specifics?
I thought later on,
Barb?
because I have some issues that Hushain had mentioned, but we'll wait till we get down to them, I think.
Okay, so then let's turn our, Lauren, go ahead.
I had, in reading through this, I found a little bit of confusion as far as what's in. When I went through these, this is out, this is in, it's like, okay, you're gonna straighten that out?
Yeah, I think it'll help if I can go through it and why we did, how I set this up for the group tonight.
Okay, thank
I
you.
think if we can get to that, then I think it'll help maybe clear up some things and help your discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, John, we'll turn it over to you now.
So the bid tab that's in front of you, that's strictly the bid tab that summarizes the bids we had. So we had 7 general contractors bid the project. Those 7 general contractors were supported and flooded with hundreds of subcontractor bids. So we had very good exposure on the project. And just looking at the numbers between the bottom 3, you got very good, close competitive numbers, which helps us as a team realize everybody was bidding the same project. Okay, when we get into some of the alternates, there might have been some confusion. So what I'm gonna do is, the bid form is what summarizes this. The base bid is blanketly what it is, the base bid. So that covers everything. The alternate one was to deduct the 20 feet of the office that we all kind of agreed that we would do in the bid form. So that 20 feet, Michael, if you're able to show that slide, and then we'll come back to the sheet. That was taking this slice of the building of the office area. That 20 square feet for the entire length plus the 2 floors.
2 floors.
That equals the 3,538 square feet. And I'm gonna come back to explain that a little bit. I'm gonna go through all them, but just so you know, that alternate number 1, that's what that was for. Alternate 2 was just an error on the bid form. It was deleted. There's nothing to be known on alternate number 2. Alternate number 3 was the base bid building, so the full-size building, but going to the VRF system. So that was a different heating system that the VAV to the VRF. So remember as a team, we wanted to see what those 2 different numbers were. That's on the base bid building, okay? Alternate number 4 is, I'm sorry, 5. No. Alternate 4.
There's where the confusion is.
What?
Well, that's where the confusion is because I understood it as, okay, we're gonna do this one, but if we don't do that, then it should be.
Yeah, so alternate 3 goes with the base bid. So you got the full building, alternate 3 is to go to the 2 different heating systems. Okay, alternate 1, which has the smaller office, that's what the other alternate goes for, because you gotta you gotta get the cost of that heating system on a smaller, office space. That's what alternate number 4 is.
Okay,
So 4 goes with 1, 3 goes with base bid. Okay? They don't all go together.
thank you.
Yep. Alternate 5 was the salt structure in the brine building. I'm gonna go through them and then I'm gonna explain what my recommendations were based on each one of them. Alternate 6 was the crane for the facility. And there again, that crane fit in base bid or alternate ones, because they're 2 different building sizes. The crane bay was the same. Alternate 7, the vehicle lifts and the mobile column lifts. Alternate 8 was the auto wash bay equipment. That was the auto wash that the team here agreed we would take a number on.
Only one, correct?
Only one. There was only one automated wash. The others were the manual wash bay.
Okay,
There are 2 bays, correct?
That,
Two
there
wash
was a
bays.
manual wash bay and an auto wash bay. This alternate is for the equipment in that auto wash bay. Alternate number 8 was the number you wanted for what that auto wash bay would cost. Okay? Or that's number 9, sorry. So then, and then the unit prices don't matter. So now I'd like to jump to this summary sheet. And this is the summary sheet that I put together, trying to formulate what our team would recommend to the village on doing. So there again, the column B, that's just summarizing the numbers of the bid form. Item C is a recommendation 1. Line item, column D is another recommendation. Bottom line, we gotta take the base bid. So that goes strings all across. If the village is only concerned with bottom line dollar today, then my recommendation is we take the 20 feet out. But I want to be clear, that dollar amount for that 20 feet is $77.30. So I just want to make sure that if a decision is made to take that 20 feet out, the team here realizes that number came in very favorable down at $77 a square foot, which we all know you'll never get back and never do again. That's why I wanted to point it out that way.
Hushain.
Yes. Is that $77 applied to the rest of the structure or just that 20 feet? What's the square foot cost for rest of the structure?
140, 150.
The rest of the building, like the overall building,
Yeah.
the overall building came in just a hair over $100 a square foot.
Okay,
Yep, for all usable square foot overall, so these are very favorable numbers.
yes.
But I wanted to say, even that 20 feet it's $77 a square feet. We all know if 10 years from now you needed to build that on, you know it's double that.
It's almost the price of building a home.
Yeah, so I just want to point that out, that if we're only thinking bottom line, that's why that's in column 1 recommendation. Okay? I'm only here to give you 2 different recommendations based on bottom line in a 100-year building.
So I just want to clarify, I'm not on the board or on the committee. So at $100, plus or minus a little bit is the cost per square foot. So by taking out the 20, we're not actually getting the full value, we're only getting 77.
Exactly right.
Okay, so we're losing 23%.
You're,
Okay.
if you want to look at it that way,
All
yep,
right.
yep.
And I just want to clarify for everybody, this pink or coral color, that's not the section taken out. It's represents the section.
No, it's a section taken out.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
That's
everything to the
actually-
left moves over, but then remember, we had different office layouts.
Gotcha, okay, you're right.
But
Yep,
that
you're
is
right.
the structural
Nope,
bay. We
you're
had to make it as clean as easy as possible to do
Nope.
this, so everyone, so it was a clean structural bay that was able to be moved over.
Okay, got it.
Yep. Now, some generals may tell you it wasn't clean, but based on the numbers, it was close, so that everybody understood what we were doing.
Okay.
So then, in summary to Mark's comments, we don't get the much value for removing that section in a square foot, because that's just the way the things are built. I mean, you have to have a foundational amount and then you add square foot to it, but it doesn't come out even. And the opposite side of that coin, of course, is that when we would try to add it back in, it would be
Yeah,
much more expensive per square foot.
yeah, and the
So
reason
we
too is
lose
you,
on both ends of that deal if we don't add it in now.
yeah, and the reason being is because the slice is in the interior. So you're only really saving, 20 feet of exterior wall. So that's why the numbers work the way they do. But bottom line, it's $77 a square foot in the future. So our recommendation is, if the bottom line is the village wants to be the bottom dollar, it's one. But we truly feel this building at that dollar value, the recommendation is number 2, because you'll never build it for that again. And it's there. It's always been allocated for future space, that everybody knew that, but this building is not a 20-year building. This building is to take the village 50 years plus. So I mean, it's forecast in the future. So I'm just gonna run through recommendation 1, just so you understand that vertical column all the way down.
Let me pause you there for a minute, John. In terms of process here, now we're gonna hear a lot of details here as we move along. Do we want to vote as a committee on each item as we go along? Or do you want to wait to the end and then try to recap everything and then vote on that?
I need to go through the whole thing for me to feel like, to make sure you understand it exactly the way this form is laid out. So if I can literally go down the columns, because it'll help, like Hushain's question about the salt building. The reason it's, when you follow recommendation number 1 down, you don't see the salt building there. That's why it's listed down below. So let me go through them, please, and then, yeah. So then, recommendation number 1, but if we're only considering bottom dollar, that's to take, then alternate number 2 is taken, or line item 2, deduct, alternate 1 is taken to save the 273,000. Alternate 4 is thrown out because that doesn't have anything to do with that. Line item 5, alternate 4, the deduct for the smaller office to go from a VAV to the VRF. On the bid form for one contractor was listed $12,900. I put that in there. And in 24 hours after doing it, it's not a recommendation I can put because I honestly think it's a wrong number. And I think we can do it, we can hold them to it, but I don't know if it's to the best interest. Bottom line is, now let me explain what the 2 systems are. The 2 systems, as we talked, are rooftop makeup air units with energy recovery units. That's a VAV system. I'm gonna give you just the major difference on how we and the engineers and the VRF is all individual units, and one unit may be serving 3 or 4 offices. The major difference is the VAV system through the ERV can bring in more fresh air and things like that, COVID time. But that fresh air is going everywhere. Every office is touched by that same fresh air. So that's one negative, where the VRF, the amount of fresh air is only based on all those individual units. So now you're not, if you got 10 units, you got 10 different fresh airs, if that makes sense. So there's a pros and cons there. Okay? The VRF, bottom line is, it's gonna give you more years. What that truly is, I can tell you it's easily anywhere, engineers, so if one on the paper is, say, 15 years and the others is 20 years. Now, truly, it's probably 20 and 25, you know what I mean? The reason being is, the best explanation engineer told me to tell you, if you park your car outside, it doesn't last as long as if you park it in the garage. More of the VAV system is units that are outside, where the VRF system is all interior type units. Plus it's so, on paper, Focus on Energy, when they ran it almost as an equal slate. So, and there again, that's keeping utility costs, gas and electric, because one's heavily related to gas, the other's heavily related to electric.
So John, did they make a recommendation? That was part of their charge, if I recall?
Focus on Energy?
Yeah,
Focus on Energy gave us multiple bundles, as they call it. They don't give you a recommendation which one to pick, if that makes sense. They just give us as much information so we can make a good educated guess which one is gonna use the most cost and utility and which one's not. And they're pretty much the same because one uses more gas, one uses more, it juggles each other. Based on the numbers, I truly feel that ad probably is, if you look at everybody else's, the average is about $200,000. Now, Myron, their bid said, so to me, if it's truly 12,000, my engineer said we'd recommend it if that's the true number. Does that help? Now, if it's 200,000, he would say he would not recommend it. It's not enough difference to jump up to go to the other system. So that's the toughest one, I think, in all these to figure out which ones we really want to go with. Hopefully I didn't confuse you guys too much on that.
So John, what you're basically saying is for the VRF, it'll cost us $200,000 more. Cost-wise, there's really not a break even that we're gonna save money on utilities to offset that 200,000.
Correct. What it will be is the replacement cost of buying 5 to 8 more years, say. I can't tell you exactly that year span, but ASHRAE, who governs all these, they just got to give you some baselines. But they'll say like a makeup air unit's 15 years, which we all know you kind of get 20 years. They'll say the VRF, you get 20 years, which we know you're going to get more than 20 years. So it's really that replacement cost and maintenance related to it. But I think we'd have to do some hard numbers if 200,000 is the number, if that year span and the maintenance is really worth doing that way. It is noted, makeup air units in our climate up here, they take a bigger beating. So.
Just to sort of clarify for me, Jen, you're about alternate 3 only? Right now, because that's the add-on.
No, I'm talking alternate.
And the alternate 4 though is a slight deduct on the.
Yeah, but I think the number's wrong is what I'm saying, but they have to honor it is what I'm getting at.
Right, so
Yep.
I was just trying to clarify.
Yep,
We're talking about the same item, I guess.
Yes.
Yes.
My recommendation number 1, remember, is taking the smaller office. That's why I'm talking alternate 4.
Right.
3 has nothing to, if you take alternate 1, then you got to jump to alternate 4. Because it's the smaller office. Yep.
So they go together.
Yeah.
You gotta remember, when they put the bid together, if they wanna drop their price, they're gonna cut something in there. Sometimes we can see that number when they cut their price, sometimes we don't. And it might be just right here, he decided to cut his number down,
Yeah,
up his price.
yeah.
I have seen that many times, oh.
I don't think that's the case here. I think it's been verified and said that this is the correct number. So to me, there's no argument really. It's been validated, it's the correct number.
They understand what they did.
Yeah.
They know what they did and that's the number, that's.
Perfect. So if we agree that if the board or the committee here is focused on the lowest number and cutting 20 feet of office in, then we recommend the VRF system. If we go with the bigger building, we don't recommend it because then it's an add of $200,000. That make sense? Yep. Then jumping down to the next one.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to know, Gary, you're on the line, right? Gary?
Yes, I'm here.
Did you hear, do you understand what we're going through here?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And
Go ahead, Gary.
and John, when we talked to your engineer and went through some of this stuff with our guys, your engineer hasn't designed one of these systems yet, has he?
Oh, yeah, he does them all the time. Nope, that's incorrect.
Okay, so
Their
then,
office in Texas does them all the time and, they do them all the time.
okay, well, it just didn't seem like he was familiar with the type of systems or the newer systems that we've been putting packages together on. And there is a pretty significant savings in it, but I don't want to even get in remotely into arguing about any kind of savings here or what Focus on Energy. It's new to Focus on Energy. I know you said earlier on, Focus wouldn't even do them, and they were starting to do them earlier. But we had a couple of them 2 years ago that they wouldn't do because they didn't have enough information on them yet. But there's several projects that we've done with them, and they've been they're guaranteeing almost 40 to 50 years on the units.
Yeah.
So
And there again, that's the board's decision. It, like I said, on recommendation 2, if you want to add the 300,000, the 212,000, that's a decision to try to make on the two different systems.
Got it. Thank you, Gary.
thank you.
I just want to ask a question here. The VRF is the system that you can call for heat or cooling to each office, correct?
It's not each office.
Okay.
So that's a little bit of difference the way we did design. The cassettes, they call it.
Yep.
We took one cassette and it might do 2 or 3 offices.
Okay.
Yep.
And the other one is bigger zones.
The one is the same thing, but it all shares the same fresh air, makeup air
Okay.
coming in through an ERV. But the VAV still gives you separate zones.
Okay.
So but it's this bigger unit supplying all those zones.
Right. My
But
question.
John, you're all,
Go ahead.
sorry,
Gary.
sorry, Mark.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna, the only thing that we're missing here is that if part of the building, say you're having a meeting in your conference room like you're in right now, and it gets heated up in there, and there's another part of the building that's calling for it, it'll pull that heat out of there through the refrigerant and utilize it back in another space in the building. That's where you're getting your energy efficiencies out of as well, besides firing up a system and burning fuel or electricity or whatever it may be. It's pulling the refrigerant. So you can do multi heating and cooling with the system. And you're right, John, you can do individual zones if you wanted to. I wasn't sure how your guys laid that design out, but you can put multiple offices on one stat that about 3, 4, whatever it may be, like ENT, some of the doctor's offices and individual spaces that they have their patients come in. They wanted each one of those set on their own zones. So their own, when they walk in, they automatically occupy and it brings it up to the temperature they have it programmed at. Now, the doctor's office themselves, they wanted specifically where their ladies and their patient account people, their employees, they wanted specifically them areas zoned where they had their own offices because they get so many complaints with, I'm hot, I'm cold, I'm hot, I'm cold, where they were able to control that a lot easier with the VRF system.
VRF, and that's it sounds like it's minuscule, but it'll be really disappointing to put up this kind of a building and walk through it in the wintertime with remote heaters all over the place.
What do you mean remote heaters?
Plugged in heaters, portable heat sensors. So, I mean, that's just something that.
Why would you do, I'm just trying to understand why you're saying one system?
Because everybody's different. Everybody's different in their offices. And it'll just be really disappointing to see all these, heaters everywhere. And I mean, not our structure. I mean, people bringing them in because they're cold, I'm hot, I'm cold, I'm hot.
But just so you know, both systems give the same coverage and zones. So the way he set it up, the same 3 offices that are on zone for the VAV are the same as the VRF. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So
You'll still have the heat.
you'll still have the same,
No, that's my problem.
The only way you could do that is if you had a separate zone for each individual office, and that's really expensive.
Oh, you do not want to do that.
Well, Gary has said this several
That's
times,
ridiculous.
that the VRF would then pull heat out of a room that's being called somewhere else, where the VAF would not do that. Or VAV.
but I think what Gary was referring to more to is that individual cassettes for every room.
Okay.
We do not have every room
Okay.
on a separate cassette.
Okay.
The numbers, your number would probably be a lot more lopsided here.
Okay.
I mean, we tried it with the system.
We could do that. It would probably be a design that we would probably want to grab a hold of ourselves to do the design. And again, I don't even know that, I don't think any one of us even had time to bid this project at all on our team. But it can be done, and we just did the new Surgical and Associates in Wausau with this same system. We put one in Wausau Supply. Joe's next to you. He was a different manufacturer in their office setting, which has come amazingly. The technology has changed so much in the last 10 years. They've come so far with it, and the controls as well. But there's lots of, we got to get off this subject, and that's something I think should be brought to a board meeting, and maybe bring somebody in that can communicate educatedly. Not saying that John's not or his engineer is not, but somebody that can communicate from the system, from either one of those systems, and somebody that's got some history with them, that have been putting them in the area or in Wisconsin, that can talk about them and educate the board on it.
Yep. So either way, the apples to apples zones of both systems is on the recommendation number 2, the bigger building, the $200,000. So where we take that beyond, if you go, for some reason, I want to change that to, then it's the number of my, however. Just going down the line, alternate bid numbers 5, line item 6 was the salt and brine building. That number, as it might be a good accurate bid number from all the bidders, we don't feel it's the right representation of what we need in Weston. We're recommending not taking that alternate at all, and that's why it's carried down later on. The site still needs it, but it doesn't need what we have drawn. What we have drawn or implemented got way out of control in price. The original price we had in the line budget, that was the only item that really didn't fit in line with what we had. We had about $350,000 allocated for that line item. So we're recommending, yes, we still carry number down below, Shane, that's why it's down below, but not underneath the bid contract.
There are people out there that specifically do salt chip.
Yep, exactly.
And we can get a better price than what if you bid it part of this.
Yep, and that's what we try to do here, because we had a little bit of a hybrid of two different, a salt building and a blending, and I think it inflated the cost too much. So we're gonna simplify that. Our team will put the documents together and rebid that at a later date. So that's why it's in the project budget, but not in the recommendation of under the general contractor.
Okay.
7 is a very good price on the crane, the 53,000, we're recommending that. Item 8 is the alternate for the line item 8, I should have put these on the same line. Alternate 7 for the vehicle lift and the mobile column lifts. 66,000, that fit in the budget. And then we're recommending not doing the auto wash equipment or the auto wash bay in either case, and we'll have the manual.
One manual bay.
Go ahead, Lauren.
2 manual bays?
Yep.
One.
Just, so you'd have 2 manual bays, but we got rid of that enclosed room.
Okay.
That'll just be an open drive-through bay, remember the way the plan was?
Yep.
And they can wash in either one of them, but it will not be an auto wash system.
So both manual.
Yep.
Which would actually allow for 4 vehicles to wash, right?
Unless you got
Each one
something
does
big in there.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. That's excellent.
But I think that was, I think that was what the committee was kind of sensing, but we said, let's see what it was gonna cost.
I agree.
We don't feel it's worth the investment or what it's needed.
Dwayne, do you have some thoughts on that?
No, I'm glad we went through the process and I understand what his recommendation is. It's good.
Okay.
We did still put in the manual one. It's an under chassis wash. So we're still getting some of the harder areas to do in the vehicle. So I think some of that's still implemented in the price.
It's a good recommendation.
So then item number 11 across the board is where we would end up. My recommendation, our firm's recommendation is the larger office, keeping it as is because it's a $77 a square foot, which would put it at $14,160,000.
Oh, second one, alternate 2.
Yep,
D.
the D column D.
Okay, I understand.
But there again, if the committee, I just did the others, if the committee was looking for bottom line numbers, then that's what you look at. And then as a whole, I wanted to continue all the items we've been showing you to date. We wanted to make sure we carried. So the salt storage, the furnishings, the geotechnical, the contingency was dropped drastically. That number was originally like 600,000 or 800,000. Obviously, we're out for bids. We know that, so that contingency number dropped. We have gas and electric services. The land was always part of the original cost estimates. That's why I kept it on there. And the state printing fee, that number also came down. That was originally $12,000, that came down. Our fee hasn't changed. So bottom line, you're looking at line item number 3 for the 16.4 million if you recommend number 2.
Howard had a question.
I have a question. On line 10, what does the removal of all trades this room mean?
Yeah,
That's the wash bay.
Because you had a special electrical service, water services going to that infrastructure area that's no longer needed.
Okay,
oh,
that explains it. Thank you.
Yep. And that's on our drawings, but we wanted to make sure they cover, because in some cases, like the crane, if we took out the crane, the power disconnect still stayed there. So if you don't do the wash bay, you're never gonna do it in our mind. So there's no reason to run electric over there and have this stuff just sitting.
Thank you.
A question.
Hushain.
In item 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, those are all for the salt shed or?
No, total project.
Okay, so that 55,000 for geotechnical is for the whole project.
Yes, sir.
The 200,000 contingency is also for
The whole $14 million project.
Okay.
And the 35,000 is hookup for the utilities, basically?
Correct. That's the estimate to bring the new gas service, new electric service to the building.
Still, I don't agree with that $1 million because the project here, this facility is almost $1 million. Based on just a quick calculation I did.
And I want to be clear, when I said the building was a little over $100 a square foot, I'm using the building cost. Because you don't typically put A&E fees and geotechnical fees on, so if just sort of group here realizes it, I'm using that 14,160,000 when I say that.
Barb.
Yeah, I'm glad you're recommending the larger office spaces. I just felt we were just looking at a number, but we were not looking what it was gonna cost us in the end. Because in 5-6 years, you start trying to add on what you took off. The cost is gonna far exceed anything that you saved. My question on the heating system, the VRF, you're saying, and I agree that these units that are sitting out in the weather do not last very long in Wisconsin. We've fixed, I don't know how many times on this building and replaced it. And within a matter of years, there's always something going wrong with them because they're out in that cold. And I just wonder if, although I struggle a little bit on the 212,000, if in the end, we aren't gonna save that much just by maintenance, repairs, fixing of the units sitting outside. Now, more, two, a building inspector.
Dwayne.
Yeah, I want to, just for clarification, so D, alternate 2 recommendation. What heating system we have, just like, just want to know, just so I can write it in.
The VAV.
The VAV.
Yeah, you would have to add in the,
That's fine. That's
the
all.
212 into it if you take that system.
Okay, we'll recognize our employee.
April. I do the maintenance on the buildings and so forth. John, I got a question for you with the VAV system, the rooftops. Now, the rooftop is gonna be handling more VAVs than just one area. So if my experience with the safety building is one area may be cold, calling for heat, and then the VAVs reheat to warm the other areas. But when we get the opposite way where one area is needing heat and the rooftop is putting heat out and other areas are overheated, they can't cool down because they're only gonna get supplied with warm air. With the variable refrigerant, that system would not be happening that way. Is that correct?
Correct. The VRF system, you will have more control to go zone box 1 and 2 can do total opposite.
Exactly.
Where
So that's
where,
That would be a benefit.
where the rooftop unit, if it's feeding 6 zone boxes, they're all gonna have to be in either cooling or heating mode. That's a good way to point that out too.
And the VRF is inside the building.
The VRF is inside the building.
Inside, the VAV is up on top.
Correct.
Air handlers on the
And that's to Barb's point.
Yep.
So let me ask this then, sort of summarize the concerns here. Is it possible then to quantify and analyze the difference in costs taken into account initial cost of the equipment, the life cycle of that equipment on the outside versus the VRV on the inside, and come up with some sort of efficiency comparison that way? You understand what I'm trying to?
Yeah, I think if you have 4 rooftop units and just say they average $25,000 and the lifespan of that unit is 7 years less, you're essentially playing with $100,000 over 7 years, right? I mean, so it's not like you're never gonna replace the stuff inside, but like Gary said, you know, the VRF might go 40 years.
Yeah, the filters on them are 10-year warranty on the filters. They're all
Yeah.
cleanable inside. There's a lot of benefits, and like I said before, I think what we should do is, that should be something, I think we need to figure out what we're gonna do with the building itself. And we can bring Mitsubishi, we can bring 5 different manufacturers up and do a dog and pony show to explain to you what their pros and cons are, and get a VAV guy to come in as well to the board or to the building committee for that, because they can do a full cost analysis and do a whole summary page. I mean, it might be a 15-20 page report that shows the cost of maintenance on a rooftop, the cost of maintenance on the VAV, the life expectancy from ASHRAE on those. And I mean, it's a very comprehensive report. So that can be done if there's a opportunity to do that with the committee. We can definitely arrange something like that. But I think we need to figure out what's going on with the building itself and then move from there.
Yeah.
Dwayne, you had a thought.
No, John's gonna respond.
Yeah, and what the alternate can kind of be up in the air a little bit. It'd be different if we pick that choice, either way, the low bidder is the low bidder. So it helps us in that same, we got a competitive bid on numbers. So we just would need to make sure we stick with the system that was bid. Yep.
Dwayne.
Okay, now, if we just, this hypothetically, if we recommended the VRF system, we'd have to add how much to, alternate to it?
273,500. No, I read it wrong.
212.
212,661.
That's what I want to know. Thank you very much. Okay.
I got one other.
Barb.
On the salt sheds, I understand we're gonna take them out of this and bid them separately. But I guess I'm just wondering how urgent it is to build these salt sheds right now while the building project, right now we have salt sheds and we're not going to be abandoning this site till the other building is built.
14 months at least.
At least. You're also looking at, we're gonna have to try and do something with this building, and until we can sell it, those salt sheds are still usable. I'm just wondering, what is our urgency on building them?
Yeah. And Barb, that's a great question, because we talked about that too, because part of the salt shed price issue, we think, is because it's 99% wood. And wood prices are so high, so this building won't be finished for in the next winter.
Right.
So we have some time in there to redo this and do it right and get the number down where it needs to be. That's why we're not recommending putting it in the bid, Barb.
Okay, good, because I couldn't see putting that, I thought that should be a deduct because we don't need to do it right now.
No, it's not recommended to do.
Or
I have a question for Michael. is, I know it's a grief that you have to drive somewhere to load salt and sand. Is that a doable thing for Department of Public Works?
Yeah, I mean, I think if, like to John's point or Barb, for a winter or two, I mean, I wouldn't say it'd be the long-term solution, but if we have to, come here to get salt or sand for, that first winter.
It stops your guys from tracking salted sand into a new building.
There you go, yeah.
So I really think that number needs to be, and that's why I'm carrying the 400,000. I think we can be in between that 350 and 400 that we originally said.
John, can I suggest that it needs to be carried with the building no matter what, because it's got to happen, right?
Correct. It's going to be in the project budget no matter what,
But not spent right away.
Yeah.
but not
Okay.
part of the award.
Okay. Dwayne,
Now that we heard all the figures, and you can see the numbers from line 13 down are added as they could change as the project goes process. Really, the line number 11 is what I would think that we recommend to the village board for the procedure of actually moving with a contractor. And that's where I'm at, if everybody agrees, that's one thing I'm gonna put on the top.
I actually agree with Dwayne.
Lauren,
I have I have a thought. I think, we've talked about so many prices here. So theoretically, without making a motion, if I wanted to take a recommendation to add the 20 feet that deducted, which is 273,000, correct?
No. Alternate 2 already has it in, Lauren.
Okay, thank
You
you.
don't have to even talk.
That's my confusion. And then if we wanted to put in the VAF system,
You'd bring over the 212.
another 212. So in other words, it'd be 14,000.
372.70.
Okay, that's where I want to make sure that we are talking about real figures and not something, okay, did we take away here? Did we add here?
Yep. So if we're keeping the larger building and going to the VRF, all we got to do is put in that column line D is the 212,661.
Which I already did in my mind.
which comes out to how much?
14,372,787.
15,372.
14.
372,787.
Yes, I'll make the motion to go with alternate 2, adding the VRF system.
I'll second it.
Recommendation number 2.
Recommendation.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Okay.
Now, we have a question back here.
Okay, I'm looking at the numbers. So we're all saying that, the extra 20 feet's only 273,000. If we're seriously talking about this VRF system, the extra 20 feet's gonna cost us $500,000.
No.
The system-wide. For the whole building, not just for 20 feet.
Well, 20 feet of office space. I'm gonna say exactly how it's stated on the deduct. But I don't know if the larger office space is gonna be worth $500,000.
John, I think you need to explain that.
It is $500,000 because right now we're talking about adding the $212,000 onto the $14.1 million.
If you look at it as she's saying, adding the VRF in it,
Yes.
then it's $500,000.
Yes,
If we take the smaller office, we get the VRF for $12,000 as a deduct.
But as John said, when I'm looking at that, it's misbid. They are, what I'm saying, they went 200, whatever their bid was, 220,000. They were deducting, if you went with a smaller office, that 212 went down to 200. But they wrote it wrong on their bid.
But if we're gonna take it as it is, it doesn't make financial sense not to take the smaller office.
At $77 a square foot,
It's not 77 if you add the VRF.
Barb,
I guess my thought is, if we go with the smaller office, and at some point in time, 5-6 years from now, that's amount is going to be far greater, and you never get the same heating system, things are put together. Well, look at this building. How many places it's been put together. And we're trying to heat it and do whatever. It just, to me, I think we're going to be very, very short-sighted if we do not go with the recommendation 2. And I did make a motion and we had a second.
We're still on the question.
Correct.
Other, Dwayne,
Yeah, I understand our finance director's question, and I know the concern she has, but it's not $500,000. What I think this committee's recommending, so she understands, is that we think that's worth doing that for this facility. And I know she's looked at numbers, so I want you to understand that from our standpoint, for our community, and I'm a citizen member, I think it's worth putting that other $500,000 in this project at this time, based on the amount of dollars you got per square foot of $100 per foot.
And then one more comment. I guess I would like to find out what the difference in the lifespan of this heating system is.
Yes.
I mean, before this gets to the board, because that could change the board's opinion as far as what.
I will make sure we have that or a presentation to, like Gary said, I think we can arrange that.
Lauren,
And another question, it appears to me the issue is the VAV or VAF and the 20 feet of building, 2 floors worth.
I think it's for free.
She said.
So I just a question for Keith. So how much money, Keith, did you guys figure out you could spend? I mean, how much money did you actually figure out you could cover?
So the analysis of what this project was gonna cost relative to, it was actually part of a 5-year capital improvement plan that the village board adopted last year in March. And it was in total somewhere in the range of, it was over $30 million in general obligation, borrowing the amount of money that would be supported by the tax roll under general obligation borrowing for all projects that affected the general fund. So I guess the board still might have the levity or the discretion if they wanted to increase that, but at this point, staff would be working under the premise that we would then be adjusting other projects, just as happened with the public safety building. That project came in and we had to devote quite a bit more resources to that, and that really went without a question. I think that was over double what it had been estimated at, just because there was a lot of things that really didn't get addressed by the staff, I think prior to the whole bid going out. But I think it's been addressed, and I think they got the things they wanted, but that's a remodel. And this is a new build. I know we probably had some higher prices affected by the way the market is going right now. And I don't think it's gonna get any cheaper. It's certainly gonna go up, I think, probably it's gonna go up quite rapidly, I think, here, just based on what we're hearing, what we're seeing in the economy and everything going on. So, I think the village has the capacity to do this project and do it within the realm of what was approved last year in the CIP. Whether we want to make some adjustments in that and maybe increase the amount of borrowing for this, I guess that's probably a discussion yet that needs to happen with finance and with the board as a whole.
Okay, so it's well inside of your borrowing capacity.
Oh, yes.
The only question then is, what if it's more than half, let's say. So if your capacity is 30 million and this whole thing in total is costing 16, it's just a little more than half. Are there other projects that are gonna have to take a backseat in order to do this? Is, I guess is my question.
Well, one of the things that we've observed is we're gonna be getting a grant of $450,000 on a project that was going to be done under general obligation borrowing. So that grant through the state DOT will be some funds we could then redirect to this project. We made some adjustments already in equipment purchases to accommodate the public safety building. We'd be doing some of the same kind of things. Would be the understanding right now of
So it's 1.5.
I'm sorry?
What about the 1.5?
And that's another point, yes, we have, through the American Rescue Plan, I guess, again, whether we agree with that whole premise, but, the money that the federal government is making out, making available to people, Village of Weston's gonna be getting $1.5 million. And we're trying to understand whether or not that money could somehow be used in part on this project. We don't know that yet. It's still kind of unknown or undetermined as to what projects actually qualify. They have said that sewer and water projects can qualify. Whether or not it could be directed to this project, that would be another positive. Shane mentioned, of course, the land. At some point, we'll be selling this place, but, we really haven't looked into that in a lot of detail, a lot of depth, I guess. We want to have some certainty that we're moving, and then we can get better detail on that as well. But I think his ballpark number, based on what I had discussed with our assessor, is that the $3 a square foot would be a reasonable estimate for a clean site. Now, there'd be some preparation, obviously, but, so that's getting off maybe in a few tangents here, but. I hope
No,
that's
it's all relative. And when I say that, I'm on board with the need and all of that. And right now, if you're gonna borrow the money, you can't borrow much cheaper than what you can borrow right now.
This is true.
The only question on my part is whether or not you take a $15-16 million project and go forward without putting this out as a referendum. I mean, that's the only thing, because in the end, the taxpayers are going to have to pay that money back. And that's my only thought. Now, this may not be where that's considered, whether or not you put it out there for a referendum or not. That's not our job here. But this has gotten to be pretty significant, and like I say, it has the ability to use half of what the Weston's borrowing capacity is right now, not considering all the other things that could bring that down, but this is a big commitment.
Steve, you had something.
I want to just make a comment on this, Joe. The contract that was signed by Wally back in February of 2020 had a $12 million amount. And I'm assuming that if that was approved in March, the capital improvement plan, it would have probably used that number in that 30 million. So relatively speaking, that means there's going to be juggling for approximately $4 or $5 million of projects that staff had already said this is going to be important for us to include in the capital improvement plan last year. And it seems like a lot of money to big difference to me. That's me.
Right.
It wasn't the amount that's in for both the public safety building and for this facility is just under, I think it's just under 18 million. I can confirm what that is. It's not 12. In fact, I think we had 14 million in what was an estimated we borrowed to finish out the project after the land was purchased and so forth.
Can't hear you.
Speak up, Keith.
I think we had just under 14 million as additional borrowing estimated. And that was after the land and some of the AE fees. So some of that has to be updated. It's not to the level that you're mentioning.
Well, I'm just saying if this was 12 million and this is 16.6 is what this comes to, all total. So the difference is 4.6 million is how I'm looking at it. I'm just saying that this was the budget or the amount that was talked,
But I'm saying it's not that much in what is included in the CIP.
Lauren.
I think we need to remember, and I'm sure Mr. Donner does also, is this financial analysis was done by Ehlers, one of our most up-to-date finance consulting firms. And according to them, and we've used them for many, many years on many projects, the village has a capacity. The other thing we have that's coming, we're having some debts that's being paid off on our other borrowing projects. And granted, that's down the road, but the other issue is if we don't have debt, it really messes with our tax rates. No, shaking your head.
My response is the village has planned for this building, and tax rates that are forecasted that you're gonna see in your tax bill are, you're not even gonna notice. What you've seen for the last 3 years, 3% tax rate increases, we're not gonna see more than that even in the building.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
I was just gonna follow up on Steve's point. So if you remember back, when John used to have the estimate broken out, it had the building cost, and then it had like the site costs, and then it had contingency, and then it had project costs. So the 12 million referenced the building, and then I believe the site cost is always about another $600,000 to $800,000, and then there's another $600,000 to $800,000 in contingency, and then the land and the AE fees. So we were always carrying the total project cost, I believe it was about 15.2, 15.4 million in the CIP. That included, you know, the 12.5 million for the building, plus then all those costs for the site improvements and the contingencies. So the base bid on this project includes the base building plus all the site improvements. So I guess I just wanted to clarify that on the contract there.
Lauren.
Mr. Chairman, unless someone has a further comment, I would like to call for the question.
Okay, the question's been called. That means we will vote on.
Need a second, please.
Need a second?
I second.
Barb?
Wait a second already.
Okay,
No, I
so
question.
the question's been called, meaning that we will now vote on whether to stop discussion and vote.
Correct.
So everyone in favor of calling the question, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now back to the original motion then, which is to recommend and forward to the board the recommendation number 2 with the addition of the, gotta get the terminology right. The VRF system added in to that amount, which brings the total to 14,372,000 approximately for the project cost under the recommendation. That is the motion on the floor, and discussion has now stopped. So we will vote on this recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Roll call vote has been asked for. We will call the roll, please.
My computer's locking up here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. McBain,
Yes.
Gal,
Yes.
Bender's gone, Bushnell,
Yes.
Barb Ermeling,
Yes.
Brian Ermeling,
Yes.
Gerndt. Is he-
Yes.
Okay. Jordan,
Yes.
Minell,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
and Zagami.
Yes.
Thank you for taking the roll. Very unusual, unanimous vote. What do you know? Okay. Let's just see this again. So the next item on the agenda, well, perhaps brief presentation on when will this go to village board?
April 19th is the board meeting.
Third Monday, third Monday, yeah.
April 19th.
I believe, let me check my calendar, sir. April 19th.
Right.
So we need to decide if we should be represented at that meeting, and who else should we invite to represent the committee, or perhaps the architect to present to the board what our recommendations are and then help with their discussion?
The chair, would it be possible to have a joint meeting? So we can take of the building committee and the village board at the same.
I just think that you get the chair of our committee be there. Unanimous vote.
It's unanimous.
In my opinion, I don't think you need the rest of us here. We're done, and we just don't know that, I think let the chair be there.
I agree.
Yeah, I would say the
Okay.
board now is up to them.
All right. I'd like the presence of the vice chair too.
Okay, you got me.
Okay, I'll represent us, Brian.
I just looked around. 5 of the 7 members of the village board of trustees is here tonight. And perhaps the other 2 are online listening, I'm not sure. So I'm not sure who we would be talking to that doesn't already know what we.
The reason, the question we had about the comparison between the 2 systems, is
Right,
that correct?
yeah.
Yeah,
That
I think
was-
that should be a primary part
I think
of
that's
the discussion.
board can see that, their decision, if they want to make a change.
Okay, so we will, Dwayne and I will meet with the board at their next meeting, and that can be agended as a joint meeting. Oh, well, no, I guess it wouldn't be a joint meeting.
If you don't have a quorum of the building committee.
Right, it'd be a meeting of the board with the guests of the chair and vice chair of this committee to support our recommendation and make the recommendation.
Be like a committee report.
We'll have a committee report. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Who's Shane?
do we have to vote on the contract rules?
On the what?
On the contractor? Do we have to recommend the contract rules?
I don't think that's our role. I think that's the legal function of the
And the village is responsible.
staff and the board actually to accept a low bid. In fact, I think that's probably already been done. Is that right?
No, it goes to on the 19th.
Okay.
But I think ours was just to recommend what.
Ours was just, yeah.
What we wanted.
Those are all bidders numbers anyway.
Yeah, okay. So then, do we have any reason for a next meeting? Just for the committee?
Well, grand opening, I took a shovel.
The grand opening, how about groundbreaking?
Groundbreaking, I mean.
Okay.
Presumably, public will be invited to the grand.
I hope so, yeah.
We don't have anything else on the agenda, but I'm wondering if we could just very briefly touch on communications via the newsletter, the website, or special flyer, as this thing is still not, in my estimation, front and center with the public yet, and perhaps it should be. Rather than waiting for reactions, maybe we should get the word out a little more. Thoughts about that?
Well, I think once we get the board and we get the final of what we really are going to do, from the board, I think then you can put something out and say, this is what we agreed on, approved.
Unless we want to kind of get out on the limb and put this out before the next meeting of the board, in which case we're encouraging the public to show up, which maybe we don't want to do or whatever. I mean, I'm just trying to think here how the public is going to feel when they hear about it, and everything's cut and dry pretty much. And they didn't even hear about it or know about it. Well, I guess we just sent the flyer out and we've had some communication, but I'm just wondering if that's going to be adequate. Dwayne?
Well, I'll speak for myself. I did have people contact me. I don't know if anybody else in the committee. I had some neighbors talking about it, and they heard about the project. Actually, they said they heard about the project a lot through the election procedure, and that's where questions came up, This election, pretty well, the candidates were pretty open on what they see or saw, and I know it's a close election, but it's basically what I see
is that I did have comments, and basically people asked questions, some thought it was too high a cost. I explained to them what the process would be, and they were surprised, you know, I was on a committee, so you were there, and I gave my background, so I did have some questions. People did call, people did contact me, so I don't know about the rest of you.
I had one phone call. The only thing that I always ask the people that call me, have you visited the village's website? Have you seen? Well, no. So that's a little discouraging, but I understand it because I've been in local government for a while, and unless you go house to house on something like this, you're gonna have people that aren't gonna, they're busy, they have things to do. And your idea about sending out some sort of notification is where we are. I don't think we can get it out in time for the meeting, but definitely should have a big announcement. This is going to be discussed at the 19th meeting of the 19th.
Well, we should announce our results of this committee's recommendation to the press. Or
yes.
That's
Sounds like something for the chairman to do.
I believe it's out there. I believe it's out there. When the election, the committee, I don't think really produced a swell, but the election did. And, you know, a few of the candidates got it going. And I easily got over 100 contacts, if not more. And it finally, you know, I had a lot of people that I know over all the years ask me, you know, who would I recommend? And I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to recommend, and I'm not going to endorse. But I did say, you know, vote for Barb, Shane, and Nate if you want the building, and vote for Steve and John if you don't. That's what I said. And I said it over and over and over. It was very clear how those five would vote on that one issue. I don't think anybody other than one campaigned on that issue. And, but that's how it is. So, and I think I was being honest, and I wasn't drawing a side. And that's the way I felt it was gonna fall, or it would fall. So.
Thank you for your honest appraisal. Not often we hear that.
I didn't know what else to say. I mean, I got a lot of repeated phone calls and a lot of repeated emails, and I was trying to help them. I did steer them to the website. And, you know, I go through life like I'm not that well known. And when you go through something like this, you realize, oh, okay, they definitely know that I'm here. So, yeah.
I got some, and some were, like you said, were against it or wanted the referendum. You know, why was I against having a referendum? So I had to explain, you vote in a bus, but don't vote to provide funding for it. You know, you don't understand all of the issues that are involved. And I did say too, if we had a referendum and I almost got, and it was voted down, what do we do now? We cannot even.
You can't move.
You can't move. I said, and this building is not going to stand for another 50 years. You know, I said, I would love to have a referendum if everybody knew all the issues and understood the problem we're having. But I was surprised how many people that actually called, and after we talked a little bit, agreed, not that they've been in the garage or whatever, but they have been here and they've seen the building. And they actually thought, you know, they weren't happy with the price tag. I don't think anybody was. But they were supportive of, they thought we really did need to do something, and they understood why a referendum may not be a good, you know, idea. So I guess, and I did too, I told them to go, because there was one that was very been about, we're good enough the way we are. And I kind of said, well, I really suggest you go to our website and see that. I said, and you can get a better understanding. And I even suggested to some of them to call Keith and see if they could set up to view the building, you know, if they haven't really been in here. And you'd be surprised I mean, there's a lot of people that haven't a clue what this building looks like. They're on the outside and they say, well, that don't look bad. And I says, well, wait till you get into the inside of the garage or, you know, whatever. So when anybody asks me why I do not support the referendum, that's the reason why. I mean, when you put out a referendum and they want a bus service and then they say yes to the bus, but no to funding it. That tells you they're just looking at the dollar figures. They're not looking at the project and why we're doing it. So I will defend the fact that I do not support a referendum because of that. And I would love to have it, but if, you know, what do you do if it happens that it doesn't pass? What do? You can't propose another building.
So.
But anyway, yeah,
Thank you. So we will not have a meeting unless we need to call one, and that will be sometime after the board meets, if there's a need for this committee to do anything else. I don't know that there is. But to finish off the agenda then, if there are any participants online in the meeting that have comments, we will take any public comments at this time. Anyone else that wishes to comment on anything?
Somebody's showing up on there.
Please go ahead if you're online and you want to comment.
Jim.
Jim? Jim, do you want to make a comment?
How do I call in, he said.
Oh, unmute?
Unmute.
Unmute.
He might not have computer.
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute him. I don't know if his audio is not.
He might not have audio.
There's a phone number on the agenda that they can call.
Your audio's not working. I mean, I'm calling in the
Sure.
phone.
Sure. On the speakerphone or whatever.
Jim calling in 715-241-2603, I believe. Or something.
Dialing.
Right on a Zoom meeting.
Hey, Nate, you look nice and purple.
Thanks, Gary. Jim, I'm sorry, I'm gonna give you a different way of calling.
Hey, I'm just calling a Zoom meeting.
Yeah. Dial in, area code 929-436-2866. Repeat that again, 929-436-2866.
Different.
There's multiple ones that work.
Are you trying to find one that work?
Like my computer doesn't have audio.
Yeah.
So my guy, it's.
This number's on.
We got a,
Yeah.
Okay, I think he entered it, right?
hello?
All right, Jim, are you on?
Go ahead, Jim.
Is he gonna? On the computer audio?
He's on the phone.
Audio.
Hello.
There you go.
Go ahead, Jim.
Great, thanks for your
I'm gonna ask you to
patience
turn
with
your
the
computer off,
technology.
the one you're on, otherwise we're gonna have double audio feedback here.
Had just a couple of questions.
Who is it?
There was talks of shared space with other municipalities. Does this building have any of that incorporated into it?
There was no interest that anyone had to join up.
We had a
Very well.
meeting about a year, maybe 14 months ago with probably 7 municipalities. and about sharing equipment, sharing space, especially if we built a building. And all we could come to an agreement was sharing some apparatus and possibly some projects. But at the time, no one was interested in sharing the space.
Okay, great. The contingency dollars I see are at $200,000, which round numbers, that's 1.25%. I'm sure the finance director can help me with my math because that's not my strong suit, but is that enough? I mean, $200,000 on a $16 million project, that's pretty small, not?
It trends right where we see our projects that CUNY Architects is involved with. We specializes and we feel the number's comfortable there. It trends right where it, plus on how close we saw the bids shows us we have hopefully a well-prepared document that doesn't have a lot of holes in it. We do have a clean site that's already been demoed. So we took that factor out of it already. So we're pretty comfortable with carrying that number.
Excellent. Has it been explored to put this exact building on the current footprint that the village owns, where the municipal center is?
Yeah, that study went back almost
2016.
2016, and as late as a year and a half ago, prior to the village not having to buy the properties to the west and buying the site that we've at Camp Phillips.
We were contemplating buying two very small parcels that adjoin this area now. And we figured it would have been $500,000 or $600,000, especially probably a bidding war that they knew we needed it or wanted it. And we explored the option on Camp Phillips and Ross. And I mean, we got double the space, or a little bit more than double, for almost less the price. And then we could sell this. And we would have a clean build. Building it here while still operating would have been an awful lot of expense.
No, I understood. Just wanted to know if it was explored to physically put this building or make it a 90-degree angle or same equipment, just different floor plan layout. Would it physically fit on the current site? It sounds like we already went down that path.
Mark, shouldn't he identify himself?
It was very difficult to fit it in there.
It's Jim Pinasol. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Okay. This dollar amount, are any of the furniture, fixtures, facade, etc., is there any negotiating on that stuff? I mean, do we have to have the stone exterior that's shown on the rendering and in the plan, or we're a hard yes on everything that's in what was in the bid, or that goes to the trustees and the board to decide?
Yeah, the materials on the building, it's either brick or precast. There's really no cut stone, so you got some looks of that. That is what's in the bid. I think anything that you start changing at this point complicates it, and you usually don't get dollar for dollar back.
Well, and Jim, to your point, 2-3 years ago, when I first got on the board, I saw some renderings, and those renderings had an incredible amount of glass, and we kept saying, lower it, lower it, lower it, especially in this climate up here. And I remember the board saying, just kind of diffuse that a little bit. So it has gone down. I don't want to say down. It's a very attractive, modern looking building. But originally, it looked like something Wright built, the famous architect, Frank Lloyd Wright. Yeah. I mean, it was beautiful, but I think this is more practical.
Okay. So there is no negotiation on the materials selected or design of the building any further, correct?
This committee did that. There's a couple things to keep in mind there. This is a public bidding situation. So how we do this is really kind of bound by processes and state statutes. So it's a little different than someone working in a private situation, like yourself, with your own project. Once we've taken the bids, we have a project that's been defined for all these bidders, and if there's too much of a change, then we would be subject to being, I guess,
Sanctions.
some litigation or being sued, I guess, that we violated public bidding law. So we've gone through that process. And the other thing that you probably heard earlier was that as we take things out, if we ask for change orders, we're only gonna get back some percentage perhaps of the actual cost as we try to make changes. So, yeah, I think in terms of answering your question, the project is pretty well defined right now. Any changes are fairly minor.
And then furniture, fixtures, equipment from the current building, such as the sign we just purchased out front. Is any of that stuff going to move over? It looks like there's a brand new sign on the new facility.
Yeah, that's scheduled to be relocated. We've analyzed the equipment in the garage, like mobile columns, welders, any piece of equipment that made sense to be relocated is being relocated.
The furniture is just an estimate. We'll be working with some furniture supplier, looking at the stuff we have is what's gonna go over and what else may need to be purchased. That's just a.
Yeah, the next phase we'll do a furniture package, that's what that line item is allocated for.
Okay. So the new building, will that be open to the public or will it be locked as the current one is?
Well, it depends on how this pandemic works. I mean, right now, it's on an appointment basis. And, I see this building getting back opened up. And, I can see the new one also being.
It won't be open.
With some restricted areas.
Okay. And will there be any space for residents for a birthday party, graduation party, or whichever? Other municipalities have such a thing in their municipal center, village hall. That's something that, like the boardroom or one of these other meeting rooms. In fact, I believe even the village of Weston had that available at one point. I remember my grandmother's birthday being in the boardroom you're sitting in right now.
And yes, it was. And in fact, I had several events here for family and friends. And it got to the point that we weren't getting any return, and the upkeep and fixing, the stuff and cleaning. And then if we took the price up, we weren't gonna get anybody coming in from the community. I personally would vote no on that. But yes, there is some municipalities that do that. Blood drives, things like that, we do here now, and we would continue to do that. But renting it out to private parties, I would not be in favor of that, but it would depend upon the current board.
Okay, very well. That answers all my questions. Thanks so much for your time and patience with the technical difficulties.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Great questions.
If there are no other meeting participants or public comments,
Remarks from committee members?
remarks from committee members?
Sure. I'd like to thank everyone that was on the building committee. It's been a long haul and I appreciate the work of John and everyone else and all the myriad of people that support your company and Taylor's and everybody. It's like, if I had to send postcards to everybody, I'd have to spend my stimulus money to pay for it.
Fine.
I just want to thank the board for the opportunity to be involved in this, and I really appreciate it, and I am particularly pleased with some of the decisions that have been made and are carried in this. So, thank you.
Thank you. And on behalf of everyone, thank you, everyone. It's been a good experience to be involved. And
Motion to adjourn.
motion is made by Gao, seconded by Lauren to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Put this in your scrapbook.